everyone, and welcome to another video from Colour with Claire. Today I'm going to be showing you Geomorphia by Kirby Rosans. It's his most recent and his final colouring book, and I like to think of this book as the second half to the previous book, Phantomorphia, because they are both quite thin books. They only have 48 pages each, and his previous books, Animorphia, Imagimorphia and Mythomorphia, were much thicker, so I like to think of this as the second half to Phantomorphia. Now, as you can see, there are some obvious differences between the two copies. Most notably is the colour of the title. So on the US edition, it is green, and on the UK, it is blue. And that corresponds to the different details on the cover, including the bear's eyes. If we turn it over, you can see that the blurbs are very, very similar. They're at the top here, and we have the illustration, the back end of the bear from the front over here as well. Now, it's published by Michael O'Mara in the UK and by Penguin or Plume in the US. Now, one of the most obvious differences between them, as well as the title, is the size. So the US edition is larger than the UK edition, which hopefully you can see. It's only by about 1/2 centimetre both ways, but it's definitely notably larger than the UK edition. Now, the covers themselves are very different to each other. The US edition's cover feels like a plasticky material, very, very similar, if not the same, to the Mythomorphia US edition. So it feels plastic, it's kind of got a plasticky sound to it, whereas this is matte, and it's very much thinner as well. It doesn't feel like it has a plastic coating to it. So as soon as we open up the book, and hopefully this will be legible on camera, but you can see instantly the page colour is completely different, the paper colour. So in the UK edition, it is completely bright white and very stark, and in the US it is very, very creamy. It's a definite cream or ivory tone, so very, very different just from straight off the bat. You can see we've also got the blue inside cover to match the title on the UK edition, but it's plain on the US edition. So I'm not going to go through every single little difference that there is in this book, just the most important ones. But first of all, we'll start with the US. Now, the US copy, despite, as well as being bigger, it's also thicker. So I don't know whether that shows up on camera, but it is notably thicker than the the UK edition. So we've got the US one, it's bigger in format and it's thicker as well. And the reason why it's thicker is because the paper is much thicker in the US edition. Don't know if you can hear the ping, but it is very, very thick. And then you compare it to the UK, it's thinner. I don't know whether the ping kind of comes across as being different, but the paper, let me assure you, is very, very different. It is incredibly thick on the US copy, incredibly thick. I'm not sure whether I like the creaminess. I love the thickness of the paper, but I probably would have preferred it if it was white. But anyhow, we'll get on with the illustrations, and if there's any more differences that pop up, I'll just explain them through the video. So here we've got the book belongs to page, and this is a huge beetle with these big kind of snappers at the front. You know, I don't know what they're called, but it's a big beetle anyway, and on its back it has a little village. So that is your book belongs to page, very intricately detailed as usual. And here is the little bit of a blurb about the book from Kirby, just to tell you, how he's created the drawings and to watch out for the scattered objects hidden inside. Here we've got the copyright page, and all surrounding it is these jagged crystal type structures. So the first page, as you can see, has been coloured by myself already. I used Derwent Ink Tense pencils on this, and I had such fun doing it. It was really quick as well. I know a lot of people were really surprised that it didn't take me an absolute age, but it really didn't, probably 4 or 5 hours in total. The Derwent Ink Tense are very, very quick to use and very striking and effective, so I do enjoy using those. And this paper took the wet media absolutely perfectly. It didn't buckle, it hasn't sort of gone wobbly or wavy. It's very, very thick and very able to handle wetter media. So the next illustration is this Tyrannosaurus or some sort of dinosaur skull that the trees have just grown out of and through, and we have a little cabin here with some different creatures. So I really like that one. Just straight off the bat, you know, Phantomorphia, his last book, was not my favourite. I won't make any bones about that, but Geomorphia has definitely brought it back for me. This is a lot more in keeping with Kirby's style, I feel. So here we have a volcano which has erupted out with these wolf creatures that are all kind of overlapping each other, and all of the smoke behind them as well. We then have this desert scene which actually turns into an ocean scene. So it's geomorphia, so it's morphing those geographical things together. So we have the desert and the ocean. We've got camels here and we've got big ships as well. This one is super detailed and it's an octopus. Obviously that's the main focus of it. We have a diver, we've got lots of fish, and sticking up out of the octopus's head is this island. So if you were just sort of floating along on some boats, you wouldn't know that you're actually on top of this ginormous octopus. Here we have the bear from the front cover, and as with Phantomorphia, a lot of fans were quite frustrated that we don't get the other half of the bear, because obviously this is a one-sided book. But hey ho, there's not really much we can do about that. I do think it's a lovely illustration though, it really is. If you think about colouring it in entirely bare colours and then just doing a huge kind of bright wash of a sky behind it, or you could make him kind of fantasy colours. Obviously, you know, you can do whatever you like. So here we've got a fantastic illustration that is wild horses growing out of this tornado. So again, Geomorphia, we have a weather front and it's merging into animals. So it's ripping through this little village here at the bottom of the hills. And again, we've got Kirby's signature smoke around it too. This is a giant waterfall coming off the edge of a cliff with loads of hot air balloons and blimps and planes flying all around. And again, that's smoke. This is a brilliant one. It's the ruins of an old temple, but we have a tiger, a gorilla, and a hawk or something of that kind of, you know, that kind of type. And I just love this. You can imagine it done in sandy, kind of rocky colours, and I just think that's going to be probably the next one that I colour in this book. This is a very, very detailed page. So it's a cityscape, but it seems to have gone to rack and ruin. It looks a bit apocalyptic. It looks like the city has been overgrown by all of the plants and bushes and weird and wonderful botanics as well. And we're kind of in a cave. We've got all these stalagmites coming down with the bats as well. Very interesting one. This one is not one of my favourites, but I'm sure that plenty of you will have lots of ideas of what you can do with this. It's loads and loads of little seahorses in a coral reef. I think I would just go mad trying to get around every single one of these little seahorses. Another beautiful illustration with that Geomorphia title just definitely playing its part here. We've got the elephant whose trunk is growing into this large tree with all of the different branches, and there's loads and loads of bushes and rocks and sort of features down here that you can colour in, but this elephant is absolutely incredible. Here we've got a huge crashing wave with a little boy on this boat here trying to sort of manipulate his way through the water, and within the waves and the foam are bulls. So this is a very sort of very drastic scene, and I understand why Kirby's put bulls in the water, because it really is a definite sort of bull. I know what I mean. You know what I'm like with my words, guys. Bulls are very strong, and this feels like a very strong wave and a very strong scene. So I'm not going to edit. I'm not going to cut that out. You know what I'm like. So we have some koi carp here, very oriental scene. We've got the Chinese sort of building in the background and the lanterns, the carp obviously, and then the bridge, and we have a little Chinese person here with their parasol. This one's awesome. It's a snail with this huge sort of beachy, tiki wonderland scene on top of his shell. This was one that really fought with me and the first illustration with which one to do first. I was going to do this, but I decided to do the first one instead. But I really do like this one. I like the scene at the bottom as well. This is interesting. It's a Paleontologist's Dream. So you can see that we are looking at a cross-section of the earth. We have this tree here, we've got a deer and an owl, but the most part of the picture taken up by this underground scene. So we've got loads of fossils and bones and crystals and ammonites, I think that's what they're called, and all these different kinds of creatures going through each layer. That one's going to be really awesome because I can imagine a different colour palette within each section. Here we've got a whirlpool and it's made up all of jellyfish. So I can imagine that being done really well in aqua and purple. I think that's going to look awesome when it's finished. Now this is the one that I've done in the other book, which I will show you in just a moment. I wanted to do one in each book so that I could see how the paper responded. And yeah, it's a snake that turns into a river amidst this mountain and forest scene. It really is super thick, this paper, honestly. It still surprises me. So this is the giraffes who have their ears turned into trees, a bit like that elephant earlier with his trunk. Again, I just love the way that Kirby's like morphed and merged the two things together, the natural world. And then it's the items and artifacts from the book that you can find and identify in the hide and seek type theme that goes all the way through the book, and there's all the answers. And then we have a little bit of promo for Kirby's earlier works. Now I did promise to show you the illustration. There we are. There is the snake amidst the mountains. I've made some of them volcanic, as you can see, erupting, and I've made some of them dormant. I just wanted to have a bit of interest to the page because we have an awful lot of green here that looks very kind of dull, so I really wanted to impact, and of course the snake as well being these very, very bright blues. So yes. Now as for colouring, both papers are really, really nice. They take pencils incredibly well. You can do loads and loads of layers on both papers, but I would say that the definite winner for layering and for having the most capacity for layering and burnishing and blending is definitely the US edition, because it's much thicker. It does have a bit of a rougher tooth, despite them both being quite smooth stocks. I would say that the US edition has the rougher tooth, but it is definitely more creamy in colour, so it really is personal preference. So 48 pages. This is 10 inches by 10 inches, and obviously the UK edition is slightly smaller. Price wise, on Amazon UK you can buy the UK edition for £6.38 and the US edition for £11.87. On Amazon US you can buy the UK edition for $7.65 and the US edition for $9.58. So there you go, that's the current prices as of today. Now I would love to know in the comments what you think of Kirby's final book. I definitely think it is much better than its predecessor, Phantomorphia. Even though I do like gothic and horror things, I prefer this book hands down. I think it's most similar to Kirby's earlier work that we all know and love. And yes, if I was going to choose, I would go for the US edition because of the thickness of the paper and the slightly larger designs. So do let me know in the comments which one you're going to buy, if any, and what you think of all the illustrations inside. Thank you so much for watching. Don't forget to leave a thumbs up and subscribe to my channel if you haven't already. I will see you later on Colour with Claire.